I've always believed the night had its own kind of beauty. The way the city falls silent, the streetlights flicker like dying stars, and shadows stretch longer than they should. It's when the world looks most alive and most haunted. I used to be just another photographer. Weddings, birthday parties, graduations, boring stuff that paid the bills, barely. But the night? That was mine. That's when I'd roam the streets with my camera, trying to capture something different, something real. But nothing prepared me for him. It started with an email. No subject line, no name, just 7 words. Are you available for night work? I should have ignored it. I wanted to. But something about the way it popped up right at 12 a.m. like clockwork made me pause. I replied, more out of curiosity than desperation. The answer came within seconds. The message was short, cold, and precise. Meet me at Hollow Park. Midnight. Cash payment. No questions. Hollow Park, that place wasn't on anyone's list of safe destinations after dark. Old, overgrown, and forgotten by the city. Even the homeless avoided it. But that night, my wallet was as empty as my fridge, so I went. The air was sharp, almost slicing through my jacket. The whole park was dead silent, except for the sound of dry leaves crunching under my boots. And then I saw him. He stood under a crooked street lamp, just beyond the old stone bench. Tall, thin, dressed in black from head to toe, long coat, black gloves, and a hat with a brim pulled low enough to hide his face. I stopped about 10 feet away, clutching my camera like it could protect me. He didn't move, didn't speak, just slowly raised his arm and pointed at the bench. There was an envelope sitting there, like it had been waiting for me all along. I picked it up. Cold. Heavier than it should have been. Inside, 5 crisp $100 bills. No note. No instructions. When I looked up, he was already walking away, his footsteps silent on the cracked pavement. But just before he disappeared into the dark, he said something. I swear I can still hear his voice, low and dry, like the words were carved out of stone. I'll call when I need you. I stood there for a long time, listening to the night. Something about that place felt wrong, like the air itself was holding its breath. But I left. The money was real. The job I thought couldn't be that bad. When I got home, I did what I always do, I checked my camera. I'd snapped a few shots of the park while waiting, mostly to kill time. But when I looked through the photos, the man wasn't in them. Every frame showed that bench, that crooked lamp, those dead trees, but the space where he had stood was completely empty. Like he'd never been there at all. That was the first night. And if I'd had any sense, it would have been the last. But the thing about the night is, once it chooses you, there's no walking away. The first call came 3 nights later. I was lying awake, staring at the ceiling, my camera still sitting on the nightstand like a loaded gun. The room was pitch black, except for the pale blue light of my phone when it lit up, unknown number. I answered without thinking. The voice on the other end wasn't distorted. It wasn't robotic. It was worse. It was calm. Perfectly human. Cold. Detached. Like a man who'd forgotten how to feel anything. There's an address in your inbox. Midnight. Bring your camera. And just like that, the line went dead. When I opened the email, all I saw was a single line. 33 Mercer Street. Old warehouse. Midnight. No directions, no room for questions. I should have known better. But something about the man, about the money, and I hate to admit it, about the mystery pulled me in like gravity. That warehouse stood on the edge of the city's old shipping district where even the rats moved out years ago. Its windows were shattered, doors rotting on their hinges, and the air smelled of rust and rain-soaked concrete. I stepped inside, flashlight off, camera ready. The silence wasn't empty, it was thick, like something was holding its breath, waiting for me. The instructions had been simple even though none were spoken. Take pictures. As many as you can. Leave. I walked the length of the warehouse, snapping photos of the cracked walls, the broken machinery, the long-forgotten crates that hadn't been touched in decades. My camera's shutter echoed through the hollow space, each click sounding louder and louder against the silence. But there was something off. In every dark corner, I felt like I wasn't alone. You know the feeling, that crawling weight on the back of your neck? That nagging sense that eyes are pressing against you from somewhere you can't see. I didn't linger. When I got home and uploaded the photos, I nearly dropped my coffee. At first glance, the pictures looked normal. But when I zoomed in on the shadows, there were faces. Dozens of them. Some half-formed. Some staring directly into the lens. And the worst part? None of them were there when I took the shots. The warehouse had been empty. I was sure of it. After that night, the jobs kept coming. Always the same formula. A call. An address. Midnight. Cash. The locations grew stranger, old motels that had been abandoned since the 60s, fog-choked graveyards without names on the headstones, hollow houses where the walls seemed to whisper if you stood still long enough. Every time, the same pattern. I'd take the photos. I'd see nothing. But when I got home, the images told a different story. Shadowy shapes that weren't visible to the naked eye. Figures frozen mid-movement. Faces pressed up against windows, grinning. The kind of things you can't unsee once you've seen them. And then there was the last photo from that old motel. The last frame showed a man standing at the far end of the hallway. Tall, black coat, brimmed hat pulled low. I never saw him when I was there. But I knew that silhouette. It was him. That was when I realized this wasn't just a job. It was a setup, and I was in way too deep to climb back out. I've spent years behind the lens. I know how light bends, how shadows behave, how a camera can lie, but this wasn't a trick of the light. After that motel job, I started looking back at every photo I'd ever taken for him. I laid them all out on the floor of my apartment one by one. Each shot, every alley, every house, every forgotten place had something buried in the frame. Figures, faces, things that shouldn't have been there. But it wasn't just that. The images were changing. The longer I stared at them, the more they twisted. Faces that had once been frozen in place began to shift ever so slightly. Eyes that were closed the night before were suddenly opened the next morning. Smiles sharpened into grimaces. Blurred shapes pulled into focus, revealing things I wish I'd never seen. And then the photos started to bleed. I know how insane that sounds. But one morning, I woke up and found a thin, dark smear running across the glass of a framed shot I'd hung on my wall, a picture I'd taken on my second job for him. The smear wasn't on the frame. It wasn't on the glass. It was inside the photo. That night, I set up a second camera, one that faced the framed photo directly, and hit record. I let it run while I slept, too afraid to close both eyes for long. When I reviewed the footage the next day, I felt my stomach drop. Somewhere around 3:13 a.m., the photo moved. Not the frame. The image. The shadows inside the picture shifted. A figure, the same tall, brimmed hat silhouette, stepped forward in the photograph and stood there as if staring directly at the camera that was filming it. I stared at the screen for hours, replaying that moment, hoping it was some glitch, some fluke. But every time the clock struck 3:13, the figure moved. It didn't stop there. The more assignments I accepted, the faster the photos changed. My walls became a gallery of the damned, each one whispering a little louder each night, each face a little closer to the edge of the frame. And sometimes late at night, I'd hear my camera shutter clicking, even though the camera was off. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just a job. I wasn't taking these photos, I was feeding something. Capturing moments that didn't belong to the living. And whatever was in those pictures, it wasn't staying put. The calls had stopped for nearly 2 weeks. No new addresses. No strange envelopes. Just silence. I thought maybe, just maybe, it was over. But deep down, I knew better. You don't just walk away from something like this. And then, right when I started to convince myself it had all been some twisted dream, the phone rang. No caller ID. Same hollow voice. One last job. Tonight, 12:45 a.m. Pack light. The email came seconds later. No address this time, just a set of GPS coordinates. When I punched them into my phone, my blood ran cold. The coordinates pointed to an old stretch of highway, long abandoned, deep in the woods, about 30 miles from the city. No street lamps, no cell towers, a dead zone. I packed my camera, a flashlight, and for the first time, a small knife, not that I thought it would help. The drive felt longer than it should have. The GPS led me to a cracked, weed-choked road that disappeared into dense black forest. I parked, killed the engine, and stepped out into a silence so complete it rang in my ears. No wind, no birds, not even the rustle of leaves. That's when I saw it. A single, rusted streetlight stood crooked on the side of the road. Beneath it was a figure. Same hat, same coat, same faceless presence. Only this time he wasn't holding an envelope. Instead, his gloved hand lifted, slow and steady, and pointed directly at the treeline. No words, just that gesture. If you're enjoying this chilling tale so far, why not take a second to hit the like and subscribe button? It really helps us grow the channel and brings you more terrifying stories like this one. I followed the direction of his finger, gripping my camera tight. The trees swallowed me whole as I stepped into the dark. The flashlight flickered like it was gasping for power, the beam cutting only inches ahead of me. And then, The smell hit me. Wet earth. And something else. Something metallic. Familiar. Blood. I lifted the camera, clicked the shutter out of pure instinct, and that's when the flash revealed it. A body, hanging from one of the trees, still swaying gently, like it had only just been placed there. But the worst part? The face. It was mine. Same eyes. Same scar above the eyebrow. Same black jacket. My own lifeless face, staring back at me from the other side of the lens. I stumbled backward, dropping the camera, my mind racing. When I turned to run, the man, he was standing inches behind me, closer than ever before. Close enough for me to finally see under the brim of his hat. But there was nothing there, just a void, empty, blacker than the night around it. He whispered only 2 words, "Thank you." And then the world went dark. When I woke up, I was back in my apartment, camera on the nightstand, photos already uploaded to my laptop. The last image, the hanging body. My body. The timestamp read 12:45 a.m., right on schedule. I haven't left the apartment since. I've covered every mirror, every photo, every window. But sometimes, around 3:13 a.m., the camera shutter clicks, even when the camera's off. And in the shadows, I swear I see him, waiting for the next assignment. They say a photograph freezes a moment in time. But what no one ever tells you is, sometimes the moment doesn't want to stay frozen. I've stopped answering unknown numbers. I've stopped accepting jobs. I haven't picked up my camera in weeks. But it doesn't matter. The damage is already done. I still remember the morning after that final assignment. The world outside my window looked normal, bright, loud, and alive. The sun was shining, the birds were singing, the city moved on as if nothing had happened. But inside my apartment, something was different. I noticed it first in the reflection. Not in the mirror, but the reflection on the black screen of my TV. A small, almost invisible shape in the corner. At first, I thought it was a trick of the light until it moved. The same figure, the same silhouette standing silently behind me. Always just out of reach, always at the corner of my eye. I started seeing him everywhere, store windows, puddles, even the stainless steel of my kitchen sink. No matter where I looked, he was there. Watching. Waiting. And the photographs, they still change. Slowly. Patiently. One night, I tried burning them all. Every photo from every job. I watched the flames chew through the prints, curling the edges, blackening the faces. I thought it was over. But the next morning, the photos were back. Right there, neatly stacked on my desk. Fresh. Unscratched. Exactly the way they were before. Except this time, there was one new photo on top. A picture of me. Sleeping. I know I didn't take it. My hands trembled as I flipped it over. Written on the back in the same cold, perfect handwriting. Assignment pending. That's when I realized the truth. I wasn't hired to take photos. I was chosen. Chosen to be a collector. A messenger. A delivery boy for something far older and darker than I could ever comprehend. And the more I thought about it, the more pieces began to click. Why had I never asked who the client was? Why had I never questioned the money? Why did I keep going back, even when my gut told me to run? It wasn't greed. It wasn't curiosity. It was him. The man in the hat. And I don't think he ever wanted the photos. I think he wanted me. There's something else too. Something I haven't told anyone. The timestamp on the final photo, the one of me hanging from the tree, it wasn't from the night I took it. The date was set for next week. A day that hadn't happened yet. I don't sleep much anymore. When I do, I dream of places I've never been. Abandoned warehouses, empty streets, graveyards choked by fog. The same places I shot for him. But in these dreams, I'm not holding the camera. I'm the one being photographed. And every morning when I wake up, the stack of photos on my desk grows taller. I've tried to warn people. I've posted online. I've shared my story. But no one believes me. I wouldn't believe me either. But if you're hearing this, if you've made it this far, I need you to understand one thing. If you ever get a call from an unknown number in the middle of the night, if you ever hear a voice offering you a job, no questions asked, hang up. Don't answer. Don't reply. Because once you take the first photo, you can never stop. And if you're sitting there right now thinking this is just a story, look behind you. Go ahead. I'll wait. Because some moments don't stay frozen. And the story, it's never really finished. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to see more videos like this, please like, comment, and subscribe for future updates.